The evacuation sirens had been silent for 3 hours when Captain Vale received the transmission that would haunt the galaxy forever. "All vessels, this is Terra Control." The crackling voice cut through the static of deep space. We're staying." Vale's 4 arms trembled as she gripped the communication console aboard the Meridian's edge. Around her, the mixed crew of Altarians, Vexans, and Karathi had gone deadly quiet. In the view screen, Earth hung like a wounded pearl against the void, its blue-white surface still beautiful despite the approaching darkness. "Terra Control, repeat that transmission," Vale commanded, her translator struggling with the emotion in her voice. "Did you say you're staying?" "Confirmed, Captain. Earth is not evacuating." The words struck the bridge like a physical blow. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had run their calculations. The numbers were absolute, undeniable. The Devourers, those writhing masses of dark matter that consumed worlds, like cosmic locusts, would reach Earth in 47 hours. No planet had ever survived their touch. Not Kepler-4 with its crystalline cities. Not New Arcadia with its floating continents. Not even the fortress world of Titan's Gate with its legendary defenses. Earth was a backwater planet, barely admitted to the Coalition 3 years ago. Its inhabitants were primitive by galactic standards. They still used chemical rockets and nuclear fusion. Their weapons were laughably outdated. Their technology was centuries behind even the most basic Coalition worlds. Everyone knew humans were the weakest species in known space. "Captain," whispered First Officer Kren, his scaled face pale with disbelief, "they're committing suicide." Vale had spent the last 72 hours coordinating the largest evacuation in galactic history. 1,200 ships from 43 species had gathered to save Earth's population. The logistics were nightmarish. Humans couldn't survive in most alien atmospheres. Their dietary needs were specific, their psychological requirements bizarre. But the Coalition had tried. They had offered sanctuary on dozens of worlds, promised to preserve human culture, even offered to terraform new planets for their exclusive use. The humans had politely declined. "We appreciate the offer," had been Earth's response through their ambassador, a mild-mannered woman named Dr. Kim. "But Earth is our home. We'll figure something out. Figure something out." Against an enemy that had devoured 17 worlds in the past 2 cycles. Against creatures that fed on planetary cores and left nothing but cosmic dust in their wake. Vale had argued with the Coalition Council for days. "We cannot abandon an entire species to extinction," she had pleaded. "But," the Vexan High Command was clear, "we will not sacrifice our fleets for one stubborn world." Now, as she watched the last Coalition vessels break orbit and jump to hyperspace, Vale felt something she had never experienced in her 40 years of service. Shame. They were leaving 3 billion sentient beings to die because those beings refused to abandon a ball of rock and water. "Captain," Communications Officer 10 called out, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's surface. They're doing something down there." Vale's primary eyes narrowed as she studied the sensor readings. Across the planet's surface, power grids were lighting up in patterns she had never seen. Cities that should have been dark were blazing with energy. Factories that should have been abandoned were working at maximum capacity. "What are they building?" She whispered. "Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you." "Unknown technology," 10 reported. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases." Vale made a decision that would define the rest of her life. "All stop. We're not leaving, Captain." Kren's voice cracked. "The Devourers will be here in 46 hours. Then we'll witness humanity's final stand," Vale said quietly. "Someone should record what happens here, for history." But deep in her four-chambered heart, she wondered if they were about to witness something else entirely. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have wiped out most species. They had crawled from caves to the stars in the span of mere millennia. They had never been the strongest or the fastest, or the smartest, but they had never been conquered. As the Meridian's edge settled into a high orbit, Vale couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to learn something terrible and wonderful about the species they had all underestimated. 40 hours before the Devourer's arrival, the impossible began to unfold across Earth's surface. Captain Vale watched through the Meridian's edge's enhanced sensors as humanity transformed their world into something unrecognizable. What had started as mysterious energy readings had become a planet-wide construction project that defied every law of physics the Coalition thought they understood. "Captain," Ten called from the communication station, his voice tight with disbelief. "I'm receiving telemetry from 17 different locations. They're building structures, massive ones." On the main screen, real-time imagery showed construction sites that stretched across entire continents. But these weren't buildings or weapons in any conventional sense. They were geometric impossibilities, crystalline towers that seemed to bend spacetime around themselves, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at directly. "How are they doing this?" First Officer Kren whispered, his scaled hands trembling as he processed the sensor data. "According to our readings, those structures are generating gravity wells equivalent to small moons." Vale had commanded starships for 4 decades, had seen the technological marvels of 43 different species, but nothing had prepared her for what she was witnessing. "10, can you get me a direct line to Terra Control?" "Patching you through now, Captain." The voice that answered was steady, almost casual. "Terra Control, this is Director Mark. How can we help you, Captain Vale?" "Director, I need to know what you're building down there. Our sensors are reading energy signatures that shouldn't be possible with your technology level." A pause. Then something that might have been laughter. "Captain, I think you might be operating under some outdated assumptions about our technology." "Level? Outdated assumptions?" Vale's translator struggled with the concept. "Your species only achieved interstellar flight 3 years ago. Your weapons are chemical-based. Your computers are silicon-based binary systems. That's what we wanted you to think." The words hit the bridge like a shockwave. Around Vale, her crew exchanged glances of growing horror and fascination. "What do you mean?" Vale asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "Captain, let me ask you something. When a species develops technology capable of destroying their own planet multiple times over before they even leave their atmosphere, what do you think happens next?" Vale's mouth went dry. You hid your advancement. "We learned to be very, very careful about who we showed our real capabilities to," Director Mark continued. "The universe is a dangerous place, Captain, full of species that might not appreciate competition." On the sensor displays, the structures were growing. Larger, their energy signatures climbing beyond anything in the Coalition's databases. But now Vale was seeing something else in the readings patterns that suggested controlled antimatter reactions, zero-point energy manipulation, and what appeared to be localized spacetime folding. "Those towers," she breathed, "they're not weapons." "Are they?" "No, Captain. They're anchors." "Anchors for what?" "For Earth." Before Vale could ask what that meant, the space around them rippled. Not the familiar distortion of a hyperspace jump, but something far more fundamental. Reality itself seemed to flex and bend. "Captain!" Ten shouted over rising alarms. "Something's happening to local spacetime. The gravitational constants are... they're changing." Through the view screen, Earth began to shift. Not physically, the planet remained exactly where it had always been. But the space around it was changing, warping in ways that made Vale's 4 eyes water. "Director," she called frantically into Come, what are you doing? We're leaving, Captain. Leaving? You said you were staying on Earth. We are staying on Earth. We're just taking Earth with us. The sensor readings spiked beyond comprehension. Around the planet, spacetime was folding in on itself, creating a bubble of altered reality that encompassed the entire world. The stars beyond began to shift and blur as the local universe reshaped itself around Earth's new position in the cosmic framework. Impossible, Krun whispered. They're moving the entire planet through dimensional space. Vale could barely speak. How long have you been capable of this? About 50 years, give or take, Director Mark replied cheerfully. We've been working on it since we realized we might need a quick exit strategy someday. But the Devourers will arrive at empty space in 39 hours and 17 minutes. They'll find some very confused cosmic radiation and a few confused asteroids, but no Earth. The transformation was accelerating now. Through the view screen, the familiar constellations were disappearing, replaced by star patterns that belonged to no known region of the galaxy. Earth wasn't just moving, it was traveling through dimensions that coalition science had barely theorized about. Captain, Ten called out, his voice filled with wonder and terror. I'm detecting the formation of what appears to be a stable wormhole. No. Not a wormhole, something else, something that connects to everywhere. Vale understood then what she was witnessing. Humanity hadn't just hidden their technology. They had been preparing for this moment for half a century. While the galaxy had watched them struggle with primitive rockets and nuclear power, they had been developing capabilities that made them the most advanced species in known space. Director Mark, she said quietly, where are you taking Earth? Somewhere safe. Captain, somewhere we can keep an eye on things. And where is that? The center of everything. 36 hours after Earth's disappearance, the Galactic Coalition Emergency Council convened in the crystalline chambers of Altair Prime. Representatives from 43 species filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication, creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, harmonics, and neural broadcasts. Captain Vale stood at the central podium, her 4 arms steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to report. Around her, the greatest minds in the galaxy waited for an explanation that none of them would truly believe. Honored delegates, she began, her words automatically translated into dozens of languages and thought patterns. I am here to report that the species we knew as humanity has demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our collective understanding by several orders of magnitude. The chamber erupted. Counselor Vex of the Altarian High Command raised his crystalline appendage for recognition. Captain Vale, are you suggesting that a species that barely achieved interstellar flight 3 years ago somehow escaped the Devourers? I am suggesting, Counselor, that we gravely underestimated their capabilities. Vale activated the holographic display, showing the sensor readings from Earth's final hours. The data painted an impossible picture, a planet-sized object being removed from normal spacetime through methods that violated everything the Coalition thought they knew about physics. These readings, she continued, indicate that humanity has mastered dimensional manipulation, zero-point energy extraction, and what appears to be selective gravitational field generation. They didn't escape the Devourers' delegates. They removed themselves from the equation entirely. High Coordinator Zen of the Karathi Collective spoke next, her mental voice cutting through the chaos with surgical precision. Captain, such technology would require computational power beyond our most advanced quantum systems. It would require energy sources that we have only theorized about. It would require an understanding of spacetime mechanics that are greatest scientists consider impossible. Yes, Vale replied simply. It would. The implications settled over the chamber like a toxic cloud. If humanity possessed such capabilities, then every assumption the Coalition had made about galactic power structures was wrong. Worse, it meant that for 3 years the most advanced species in known space had been sitting quietly in the back of their councils, letting everyone else believe they were the primitives. "There's more," Vale continued, dreading what came next. "Before Earth's departure, I detected similar energy signatures from 17 other locations throughout the galaxy. Locations that correspond to systems we've lost contact with over the past 50 years. Counselor Vex's crystalline form darkened. Lost contact with? Systems that we assumed were destroyed by natural disasters, cosmic phenomena, or early devourer attacks. But now ... Vale paused, letting the implications sink in. "Now I believe those systems didn't die, they left." The chamber fell silent. In the vast amphitheater, beings from dozens of worlds contemplated the possibility that they had been systematically abandoned by species they had never suspected of having the capability to abandon them. "How many?" High Coordinator Zen asked, her mental voice barely a whisper. Vale consulted her datapad. 17 confirmed systems. Population estimates suggest approximately 200 billion individuals across 12 different species. The numbers were staggering. If Vale was correct, then nearly a fifth of the galaxy's population had secretly developed dimensional displacement technology and had been quietly removing themselves from the cosmic playing field for half a century. But why? Counselor Vex demanded, why hide such capabilities? Why let us believe they were primitive? The answer came from an unexpected source. In the observation gallery, a figure that had been sitting quietly in the shadows stepped forward. Ambassador Jax of the Terran, Diplomatic Corps, one of the few humans who had remained behind to serve as a liaison with the Coalition. "May I address the Council?" he asked. Vale gestured him forward, noting how the representatives tensed as the human approached the podium. 3 days ago, they had seen him as a harmless primitive. Now he was potentially the most dangerous individual in the chamber. "Honored delegates," Jax began, his voice carrying an authority that seemed to resonate from the very air around him. "You ask why we hid our capabilities. The answer is simple: because we studied you first." He activated his own holographic display, showing star charts that covered the known galaxy. But these charts were different from the Coalition's maps. They showed patterns, connections, and data points that suggested surveillance on a scale none of them had imagined. "For 50 years, Jax continued, we watched. We studied your species. Behaviors, your conflict patterns, your responses to technological superiority. We watched how you treated species you considered inferior. We watched how you reacted to species you considered superior. And we learned that the galaxy operates on a very simple principle: might makes right." The chamber was deathly quiet now. Every delegate was staring at the human, who was calmly explaining how his species had been watching them, like laboratory specimens. "We saw what happened to the Celestial Collective when they demonstrated gravitational manipulation. Within 10 years, they were either conquered or had their technology stolen by 6 different coalitions. We saw what happened to the Silicon Prophecy when they achieved consciousness transfer. They were enslaved within a generation." Jax's next words would be remembered by every being in that chamber for the rest of their lives. "We realized that, in a galaxy where advanced species were either conquered or forced to become conquerors, there's only one safe strategy: invisibility. So we became invisible. We let you see what you expected to see: a young primitive species struggling with basic technology. Meanwhile, we built something you couldn't attack because you didn't know it existed." High Coordinator Zen leaned forward. "And now the Devourers have changed everything. The galaxy is about to face an enemy that makes all your previous conflicts look like playground disputes. And you're going to need help." Vale felt her 4 hearts racing. "Are you saying humanity will help us fight the Devourers?" Ambassador Jax smiled an expression that now seemed far more complex than it had 3 days ago. "Captain, we've been fighting the Devourers for 30 years. You just didn't know about it. The revelation that humanity had been secretly waging war against the Devourers for 3 decades sent shockwaves through the galactic community that would forever change the balance of power in known space. Ambassador Jox activated a new holographic display, and the assembled delegates gasped as star charts filled the chamber, not the familiar maps of Coalition space, but detailed tactical analyses of Devourer movements spanning 30 years of conflict. The first Devourer incursion occurred in the Outer Rim territories. Jox explained, his voice carrying the weight of hidden history. A probe fleet attacked the mining colonies of Kepler 442. The Coalition assumed it was destroyed by equipment. Failure, it wasn't. It was the opening move in a war that's been raging ever since. The hologram showed the progression of Devourer attacks, not the random, overwhelming assaults the Coalition had recorded, but a systematic invasion pattern that revealed far more intelligence and coordination than anyone had suspected. We intercepted their communications, Jox continued. Learned their language, their tactics, their objectives. The Devourers aren't mindless consumers, delegates, they're farmers. And they've been cultivating this galaxy for harvest for over 1,000 years. Captain Vale felt her world tilting on its axis. Cultivating? Every species in this chamber, every world you've colonized, every technological advancement you've made, it's all been guided by Devourer influence. They seed worlds with life, guide evolution toward intelligence, wait for civilizations to develop the specific technologies they require, then harvest everything. The implications were staggering. Counselor Vex's crystalline form had gone completely transparent with shock. You're saying our entire civilization is artificial? Not artificial, Jox corrected. Guided. The Devourers have been using quantum manipulation to influence probability cascades throughout this galaxy for millennia. Every major breakthrough, every evolutionary leap, every coincidental discovery that advanced your species, all of it was orchestrated to produce the exact technological capabilities they needed. High Coordinator Zen's mental voice was barely detectable. What do they need? Consciousness, Jox replied. Specifically, advanced consciousness capable of quantum computation. They don't just consume worlds, they consume the accumulated knowledge and mental patterns of entire species. Every being they've killed is still alive inside their collective consciousness, being used as biological computers for calculations that span cosmic scales. The chamber erupted in horrified understanding. The Devourers weren't destroyers, they were harvesters of souls, and every species in the galaxy had been bred specifically for that purpose. But humanity escaped this guidance, Vale said, beginning to understand, not escaped, Jox corrected. We detected it. About 60 years ago, our scientists noticed probability patterns in our technological development that suggested external influence. We spent 2 decades confirming the existence of quantum manipulation fields throughout our solar system. He activated another display, showing Earth's solar system surrounded by invisible energy patterns that extended far beyond the orbit of Pluto. We discovered that our entire reality was being guided by forces we couldn't see or detect through conventional means, so we developed unconventional means. We learned to manipulate quantum fields ourselves, to hide our true development from the Devourers' surveillance systems. And when did you make contact with them? Counselor Vex asked. 30 years ago. They sent an assessment team to evaluate Earth's readiness for harvest. We were ready for them. The hologram shifted to show Earth's solar system during the first Devourer contact. But instead of the primitive world the Coalition had known, the display revealed a fortress system that would have made the greatest military minds in the galaxy weep with envy. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt. Weapon platforms disguised as moons. Defense networks that spanned light years but remained invisible to conventional sensors. Earth hadn't been a backwater world. It had been the most heavily fortified system in known space. We captured their assessment team, Jax continued. Interrogated them. Learned about their harvest schedule, their strategic objectives, their weaknesses, and we realized we had a problem. What kind of problem? Vale asked, though she suspected she already knew. The Devourers were planning to harvest the entire galaxy within the next 50 years. Every species, every world, every consciousness, all of it, was scheduled for collection. And we were supposed to be the final harvest. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of the threat became clear. The Coalition had thought they were dealing with random attacks by a destructive force. In reality, they were cattle being led to slaughter by farmers who had been planning their demise since before their species had developed agriculture. So what did you do? High Coordinator Zen asked. We went to war, Jax replied simply. A secret. War. We couldn't tell you about it because you were still under Devourer influence. Every major decision your species made was being guided by their quantum manipulation. If we had revealed the truth, they would have known we were aware of them. He showed them battle footage that defied belief, human ships engaging Devourer. Forces in combat that spanned multiple dimensions. Weapons that tore holes in spacetime itself. Defense systems that could make entire fleets invisible to all forms of detection. For 30 years, we've been dismantling their harvest infrastructure. Every natural disaster that destroyed a major population center was actually us eliminating a Devourer collection point. Every cosmic phenomenon that made a star system uninhabitable was us severing their quantum manipulation networks. Vale stared at the tactical displays, finally understanding the true scope of what she had witnessed. The planetary displacement technology you've been evacuating threatened worlds. Every species that was ready for it, Jax confirmed. Every civilization that had developed enough independence to break free from Devourer influence. We've been relocating them to safe dimensions, building a hidden civilization that exists parallel to this galaxy, but beyond the Devourer's reach. And the species that weren't ready? Counselor Vex asked. Jax's expression darkened. We tried to protect them as best we could. But some species were too deeply integrated into the Devourer's systems, too dependent on their guided evolution. Removing them would have killed them anyway. The weight of hidden genocide settled over the chamber. For 30 years, humanity had been making life and death decisions about entire species, determining who could be saved and who had to be sacrificed. But now, High Coordinator Zen said, "You're revealing yourselves." Because the endgame has begun, Jax replied. The Devourers have decided to accelerate their harvest schedule. They know someone has been interfering with their operations, and they're moving to final collection phase. He activated one final display, a real-time tactical map of the galaxy that showed Devourer forces massing at strategic points throughout known space. In 72 hours, they will begin simultaneous attacks on every major population center in Coalition space. This isn't going to be another probe or assessment. This is going to be total harvest. Vale felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a mountain. What do you need from us? Ambassador Jax smiled, and for the first time since this meeting began, it was a genuinely warm expression. We need you to trust us, Captain. And we need you to be ready to abandon everything you think you know about reality. 71 hours later, as Devourer forces materialized throughout Coalition space in numbers that turned day to night on 43 worlds, the galaxy learned what it meant to be protected by humanity. Captain Vale stood on the bridge of the Meridian's edge, watching in awe as space itself came alive with defensive systems that shouldn't have existed. Around her homeworld of Altair Prime, the familiar stars were disappearing behind a barrier of pure energy that stretched beyond the system's edge. Captain, Ten called from communications, his voice filled with wonder. I'm receiving signals. From ... everywhere. Every system in Coalition space is reporting similar phenomena. The view screen showed the impossible, a defensive network that spanned the entire galaxy, materializing from what had appeared to be empty space. Weapon platforms that dwarfed the largest battleships, shield generators that could protect entire star systems, and at the heart of it all, vessels of impossible design that moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. "This is Terra Command," came a familiar voice over the comm. "All Coalition vessels, stand down and prepare for dimensional displacement. We're moving your worlds to safety." Vale watched as Altair Prime began to shift, not physically, but dimensionally. The same technology that had evacuated Earth was being applied to every inhabited world in Coalition space simultaneously. "How many worlds?" she whispered. "All of them, Captain," Ten reported, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Every inhabited system in the galaxy is being moved to parallel dimensional space." Through the dimensional barriers, Vale could see the Devourer forces arriving at empty space, their massive bioships writhing with frustrated hunger as they found nothing but abandoned star systems and confused cosmic radiation. But the evacuation was only the beginning. "Captain," Kren called from the tactical station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the galactic core. Something impossible is happening." The view screen shifted to show the center of the galaxy, where the ancient black hole that anchored their entire spiral arm had been transformed into something that defied every law of physics Vale had ever learned. The black hole was unraveling, not collapsing or exploding, but being systematically disassembled by forces that operated on scales beyond comprehension. "Terra Command," Vale called frantically. "What are you doing to the galactic core?" "We're taking it apart, Captain," came the calm reply. "The Devourers have been using it as their primary quantum manipulation anchor. Every consciousness they've harvested over the past 1,000 years has been stored in the quantum foam around that black hole." The implications hit Vale like a physical blow. The harvested species, they're still alive? All of them. Every being the Devourers have ever consumed is trapped in quantum suspension around the galactic core. We're breaking them free. What followed was the most beautiful and terrifying sight in galactic history. As the black hole was systematically dismantled by technology that operated on cosmic scales, light began to emerge from the galactic core, not electromagnetic radiation, but something far more fundamental. The light of consciousness itself, as billions of trapped souls were freed from their quantum prison. "Captain," Ten whispered, "I'm receiving communications from species that were harvested centuries ago. They're alive. They're all alive." The view screen filled with messages from civilizations that had been declared extinct for generations. The stellar Concord, destroyed 300 years ago, their quantum patterns were intact and conscious. The Crystal Architects, harvested 5 centuries past, their consciousness had been preserved in the quantum substrate of the galactic core. But the Devourers were not accepting their defeat quietly. "Warning," Terra Command announced. "Devourer forces are attempting to breach dimensional barriers. All Coalition vessels prepare for." The transmission cut off as space around them erupted in violence. The Devourers had found them, and they were attacking with the fury of farmers watching their harvest burn. But humanity was ready. From the dimensional barriers emerged a fleet that redefined the concept of military might. Ships that seemed to be made of crystallized spacetime itself, weapons that fired concentrated probability, and defense systems that made reality itself fight back against the intruders. Vale watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded across multiple dimensions simultaneously. This wasn't warfare as she understood it. This was cosmic forces reshaping the fundamental structure of the universe itself. "Captain," Kren called out, "the Devourers they're retreating." It was true. The bioships that had seemed unstoppable were fleeing back to their own dimensional space. abandoning their harvest and their 1,000-year plan in the face of opposition they had never imagined possible. "Terra Command," Vale called. "Are they defeated?" "For now, Captain. We've freed the harvested consciousness and broken their quantum manipulation network, but they'll be back eventually." "They always are. And what happens now?" The response came, not from Terra Command, but from Ambassador Jax, who materialized on her bridge through some form of transportation that Vale's instruments couldn't even detect. "Now, Captain," he said with that same warm smile, "we teach you how to fight gods." Through the view screen, Vale could see the galaxy being rebuilt. Not restored to its original state, but improved star systems arranged in defensive formations, worlds positioned to support each other, and throughout it all, a network of consciousness that connected every thinking being in a web of mutual protection. "The Devourers aren't the only threat out there," Jax continued. "There are forces in the universe that make them look like children. Ancient things that have been sleeping since the universe was young. And they're starting to wake up." Vale felt a chill run through her 4 hearts. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to prepare," Jax replied. "And now, Captain, it's time to prepare you as well." As the Meridian's edge joined the growing fleet of impossible vessels that now protected the galaxy, Vale realized that everything she thought she knew about reality had been just the beginning. Humanity hadn't just saved them from the Devourers, they had inducted them into a cosmic war that spanned dimensions and involved forces that operated on scales beyond imagination. The galaxy had been transformed in a single day from a collection of primitive civilizations into the front line of a battle for the very nature of existence itself. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that everyone had underestimated, until it was too late to stop them from becoming the guardians of everything. The species that had looked at gods and decided to teach them better manners. The species that had just begun to show the universe what they were truly capable of. In the distance, more stars were going out not from devourer attacks, but from something far older and more dangerous stirring in the void between galaxies. But for the first time in her life, Captain Vale wasn't afraid. After all, she was under the protection of humanity now. And humanity, as the galaxy was learning, took their responsibilities very seriously indeed.